All right. I am really excited to be here. I just wanted to come here to play the games, but then they asked me to talk, so you're going to have to put up with me for a little bit. So some of you know me, and I came here a couple months ago. I was blown away by the teams and the students and the projects going on. So I'm really excited to see the finished work. I'm sure you guys all have worked extremely hard, and I'm very envious of the position that you guys are in. Just starting out in your career. So, Amanda talks a little bit about it. So I've been really fortunate. I've been making games for almost 30 years now, and been fortunate to work on some pretty big games that have sold a couple of copies, and also ones that have been total disasters as well. Learning a lot along the way. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, reflect back on the last 30 years of games, maybe make a little crystal ball prediction of what may be to come in the industry, and maybe a couple of bits of advice. So my brother and I, we started Vicarious Visions when we were in high school. I was 15, he was 14. That was the name of the company that we started in our parents' basement. It was called Vicarious Visions because I spelled vicarious wrong on a spelling test in English class. And the following week, we started the company. And so that's why Vicarious. But at any rate, love playing games. And we actually got our first computer like a couple years before that. Before that, we didn't have, couldn't afford and didn't have a computer. And, wanted to really, figure out how games worked. And this is before internet. Very, very early days of CD-ROM, no middleware or tools or anything like that out there. It was a dark art, and loved playing a lot of different games and adventure games. And this was the first game that we worked on starting in high school. It was a game called Synergist. It took me 5 years to get this game made. It took me 3 years in high school, and finally, when I was a freshman at RPI, we got our first publishing deal. My brother was a high school senior, which was really exciting because we got a chance to actually make our game. And this game was a point-and-click adventure game, and my brother did a lot of the art, and we hand-painted them with acrylics and stuff, and we went to the local Kinko's to scan them in because couldn't afford a scanner, and built a blue screen soundstage in my parents' basement and invited strangers to our basement to to videotape them, and wrote our own video codecs to be able to do full motion video because that wasn't a thing really yet. And so it was pretty crazy. My parents really didn't understand what we were doing. And games were not cool, so I didn't tell anybody really. It was not a way to get any dates at all. In high school, it was kind of the opposite. But anyway, we got our first publishing deal, and kind of got screwed when we got done. Didn't get the royalties that we were promised, and didn't really have any money to legally go after the company, and had to decide whether we were going to keep going or not, and whether I was going to finish college. And I remember Christmas 1996 calling my dad, and I said I was in a lot of trouble, and he's like, "How much trouble?" And I told him the number, and it was dead silence on the other end of the phone, and gave me the best piece of advice ever. He goes, "You got yourself into this mess, get yourself out." And he hung up. That was Christmas. And I'm like, all right, gonna make it work. And the following year, I raised some capital, some angel investors invested in us, because we kind of made a thing. I didn't even have a business plan, didn't think that making a company was something I wanted to do. I just wanted to make games. But I realized we had to build a company that was gonna have great people, and if you build a smart company with great talent, then great games are hopefully going to be made. And so we got some investment money. It was like $250,000, which was pretty cool, being still in school. But that money came and went like that, and we had to really figure it out. And but we were working on figuring it out. We got into handheld gaming, and that was really neat. And we built a studio up. That's like an old photo back in the RPI incubator when it was just a handful of us still in college. And it grew, which is kind of neat. And Vicarious is going strong with a few folks here in the audience. And I'm so proud of the team and what we've accomplished over the years. And there was lots of ups and downs. lots of ups and downs. In 2000, our biggest customer went out of business, and my brother and I had to take a bank loan of $1 million, personal loan. We were a couple years out of college, and it was just all liabilities. So that was going to be crazy, because if we didn't pull this off, we would be paying this off for the rest of our lives. And we didn't miss a single payroll, and we managed to pull the plane up before it crashed. And so there's a lot of ups and downs, in the industry. And but then, over time, the story kind of cleans up after itself. It kind of looks like it's a straight line up, but it's anything but. And you'll experience that in your careers. So we ran Vicarious Visions for 25 years, and in 2016, on the 25th anniversary, we wanted to go back to our roots as entrepreneurs and start over from scratch. And that was really, really difficult. We learned a lot in the process, and building up into making these massive AAA games at a big studio, and then working with multiple studios was amazing. But kind of love the new indie scene that's going on, and opportunity to do something new and different. So, hence the birth of our new studio, Velan Studios in Troy. It's pretty cool. It's very different. We didn't want to repeat what we did before, and we wanted to try something new. So the mission of Velan Studios is to fundamentally explore new forms of play, which means trying to come up with game mechanics and play patterns you haven't seen in video games before, which is kind of hard. And so it's very discovery-focused kind of studio, very experimental, and we're growing. So we're about 50 people now. We're going to get to 80, I think, by the end of the year, which is cool. Totally indie, working on some really interesting projects. And our business plan this time around is actually really simple. We wrote it on a index card, a 3x5 index card, and it's still only that. And it's very simple. Number one, build an awesome team. Number two, go find the magic in something new that the team is really passionate about. Number three, once you find the magic, figure out the go-to-market strategy and who the partners are. And then number four, build it, ship it, and evolve it with a community of players. That's it. And it sounds kind of simple, and actually it takes a lot of inspiration from how we started, how you guys work, and as a student project. But it's actually not done as often as you would think within the industry. But it was a unique opportunity for us to kind of go after it. So it's a very different kind of experience, but there's a real opportunity in the industry as it becomes more and more diverse for the kind of content that people want to play. So we're excited about that. But when you look at the industry overall, it's massively grown, in the last 30 years. There's over 2 billion gamers on this planet. That's like a third of the world's population, and it's just growing. Last year was like $130 billion in revenue, projected to go to $180 billion by 2021. Why is that? What's drawing this kind of, amazing growth rate, for entertainment? Because it is the fastest growing form of entertainment, and is driving technological change in so many other industries. So I've been thinking about this for a while now, and looking back on the last 30 years. And there's been these really interesting, transformational waves, I call them, decade by decade. And so when we looked at 1990s, when we started, it was actually multimedia PCs and CD-ROM that completely changed. And you had Windows and Mac, where it wasn't about DOS anymore. It really became an opportunity to make computers less intimidating and get it into people's homes. It wasn't just for all us nerds. It was for everybody else too. And you had that. You had real-time 3D graphics. You had Doom, and you had Quake. Driving that, the birth of the GPU, and also handheld. There's this little itty-bitty game called Pokemon that Nintendo created, and it kind of, jump-started it. Even though Game Boy, the original Game Boy, was in 1989, it was really that drove portable gaming in a whole new way. And then when you went into the 2000s, you had this evolution, in 3D graphics that became much more immersive and so on. And then you had mobile gaming. It was an amazing experience for me personally. With the launch of iPhone 4, I had the opportunity to be at the Apple keynote with Steve Jobs, and it was amazing. It was Reed Hastings debuting Netflix for the very first time, streaming on a phone. So it was like a new thing. And it was Mark Pincus demoing one of the first free-to-play games with Farmville as a social game on mobile. And it was me with a new Guitar Hero, which we launched. We didn't even like pre-market it or announce it, and it was right on the spot. There was a global audience watching, 6,000 people in the live audience. We said it's available now. Boom, the servers lit up. And by the time I sat down, it was #1 in the App Store. It's crazy. It was a whole new way of launching products that was like, man, this is going to be a thing. So you had like social casual games and free-to-play. That became a whole new way of attracting global audiences as well. And so you had an evolution of that. And this last decade, you've had the rise of mobile gaming and esports. Now, esports has actually been around for a while. In Korea, it was already a thing with StarCraft 1 in 1996, 1998. But that's really become a global phenomenon. And as you guys all know, games aren't just singular products anymore. Games as a service is a way of connecting with the community and tying into all the stuff that's streaming and spectators and how influences have transformed the world of marketing and advertising. All of these things have led to the expansion of video games and the accessibility of video games to a bigger and bigger audience. So what's next? You know, what are the next 10 years? And you guys as game designers, game developers, need to be thinking about the transformational waves of the next decade. You know, it's great to be working on games that are built on established paradigms, but you want to really look at these transformational waves because it's the games that ride those waves that break through, appeal to a new, broader audience, and also find, you know, the commercial success. So although I don't claim to be an exhaustive list, I want to kind of give you a little, at least my cheat sheet for what I think the next 10 years are, and there's already some indicators around it. So you saw some announcements from Google. Other people will also be making announcements. You know, Microsoft has made some partial announcement around that. But cloud gaming and streaming of games is going to fundamentally open up access to a whole new set of players. But not just, hey, you don't need a console anymore, but like the infinite compute power is going to completely change the kind of experiences that you can create. And more powerful than that, I believe, is the fact that you can turn on any screen and continue and play the experience and be connected to other players. It's what we saw with Netflix and streaming. And I remember distinctly back 2010, 2011, my daughter was 3 years old, and we were playing with the Xbox Kinect down in the living room. And we came up to the bedroom, and she's like, oh, I want to play that dance game upstairs. And I said, you can't. She's like, why? I'm like, the box is downstairs. And she's like, you're lying. It's like, you want me to go to bed now, don't you? And it's like, I'm like, no. The box is downstairs. There's a little camera thing, you know, and like, the box is downstairs. You can't play it up here. And she's like, well, I can watch my show up here. I can watch my show downstairs. Why can't I play my game up here? And I'm like, that's pretty brilliant from a 3-year-old. I'm like, I should be done in this industry, you know. It's like, anyway, any screen, you know, it's going to be a thing. Esports, we haven't seen anything yet. You know, look at traditional sports. You look at how embedded it is into culture, into our family, social fabric. That's going to happen with esports. It's going to be even broader because of the type of game experiences. I see it at the high school level and what's forming at the intercollegiate level. As it's forming, it's part of athletics departments in colleges. There's scholarship programs that are being built you know, around it to attract the best talent. It's going to be a fundamental shift. And broadcasting of that kind of content and how it's going to be supported for creators is going to be really interesting to see evolve. Business models, I know like you don't necessarily think about that, but just like free-to-play completely transformed who gets access, there are new business models that are on the horizon, including subscription. You saw Apple announce Apple Arcade. You've got Xbox Game Pass. When a game title, I can't stress this enough, when a game title doesn't have to be successful on the individual P&L, meaning profitability of an individual title, and it's actually based on engagement of a broad audience and having different tastes, and you want to be able to engage them for a long period of time, fundamentally changes the value of that content, especially new, distinctive experiences that you can create that previously would never get greenlit because there's not enough players who are going to buy it. Completely changes the equation. And again, you can look at Netflix and streaming and how that world has been disrupted for the creation of content and the quality of content that we now get compared to the dark days of the 90s and 2000s when it was all reality TV, filling the airwaves, right? The quality scripted content that we get now from creators fundamentally changes the equations and the power between creators and the players in the community. Global access and 5G. Again, the bandwidth, getting rid of the restraints. For most of the world, what's in their pocket is the most powerful computing device that they have access to. And being able to access the content in new ways and richer content is going to be significant. You hear about this? It's disrupting in so many different industries around machine learning and AI. The way it's going to change the tools that are built for content creation for games, how within the games themselves, how AI is going to change and how we do interaction between humans as well. It's going to have some fundamental shifts, and it's going to create new kinds of experiences that we haven't seen before. And one of the things I'm actually most interested in is how immersion is no longer about the richness of graphics that are into the screen. That's going to be big and get bigger as we go delve more into the screen. It's actually how the digital world comes into the real world and we create experiences out here and how it creates different kinds of interaction with each other. And we're only at the infancy there. The kind of radical changes that are happening in core technologies, core sensor technologies, things that we're exposed to, I've gotten some level of visibility into what that looks like over the next 10 years is going to fundamentally transform the kind of experiences that you can create. So what I'm really trying to say is game developers, we've got a massive opportunity to create new kinds of experiences, and I think that it's our duty to do that. It's our role in the world to be able to do that and transform the world. And especially in this industry, the same old gets pretty old pretty quick. So, this is why, after making games for 30 years, I'm, just as excited as I was when I was 15. And I'm super excited about what you guys are going to create, because you're going to run circles around me. So, when you take this for what it's worth, when you're thinking about your career, I think there's a bunch of different ways you can go. There's awesome opportunities at established studios in AAA and mobile and honing your craft. It's an opportunity to work in where there's established processes and structure, and you can really get specialized in your core skill set and build world-class stuff and learn a lot from others. I think there's a very viable path there, among key studios. Many of them are here today. But equally as viable are joining an indie, or a startup, because there's all these new opportunities for indies to thrive. And, leaving the world of AAA and going back into indie really opened my eyes to see how people are being very successful, in the space, and how these other transformations are going to actually open up even more opportunities in the indie scene. You could also start an indie studio, which is crazy, by some, but hey, some people have done all right with that. But it comes with its risks. The interesting thing is you end up learning a lot about a lot of different things really, really fast, because you got to do everything. And as an indie studio, you'll have to learn the business side of it as well. There's no substitute, for that, especially if you've got the chemistry with a core group. And again, new opportunities are on the horizon from a business model and the desire for distinctive content to be able to do it. Or you can kind of go solo, in terms of freelance and keep honing your skills with your portfolio, finding talent on ArtStation and stuff, that are freelance talents. Oh my God, this is unbelievable. Let's bring that person in. And working with indies, this is a great efficient cost model for them. And there's a ton of opportunities even as freelance. But, with all of it, there's I think there's some common elements that you want to really kind of think about. To determine what path is right, for you. So first and foremost, I think you got to figure out what is important to you, what feels right. And there needs to be a values alignment, your personal values and how that's aligned with whatever organization you join, whatever you decide to do. It's got to feel right, from that. It's when it's misaligned like that, you kind of start going sideways and you're not happy. So you want to really kind of go after what makes you happy and what you're passionate about. And this has always been true. It's the developers who really thrive in the industry and continue to do great stuff are always learning new stuff. So the way you're learning in school, you got to keep that going and even accelerate that. And there's no stopping of it because this industry continues to move super fast. It's really important to be observant about what else is going on in the world and what's happening in the industry, but you don't want to be slaves to those trends, right? What you want to try and avoid, and it's really hard, is like, oh, this is what's hot. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this with a twist. This is what's hot, because that's always looking back, as opposed to like looking forward. So you kind of see these waves, project out what's going to be the next evolution or the next step or how you can contribute to it. Don't be slaves to it because consumers want to be surprised. And you can't, and Mr. Iwata, once said, you can't go ask a consumer, tell me what surprises you. It's just an impossible question. And so you need to, and it's our opportunity and our duty to surprise consumers. And so you don't want to be slaves to the trends, but you want to learn from it. Be curious. This is actually one of the single most important things that we look for when we're hiring, are people who are naturally curious about anything and everything. And being curious allows you to really explore and discover ideas or approaches to things that other people haven't. You guys are incredibly talented. I mean, it's just seeing the work and what you guys are producing. I wish I was half as smart as you guys when I was 21, 22. Don't sell yourself short, but people don't work well, and teams don't work well when there are a lot of egos. And so you can come in, you want to contribute, and even the folks that we've hired that have come right out of Champlain College, I'm like, don't let anybody who's senior intimidate you, because you got a lot to contribute, and you're here because we know we can learn a lot from you, but also kind of keep the ego in check, and learn a lot from others. And I think at the end of the day, you're carving your own path, and nobody's going to tell you what that is. That's for you to figure out, and I encourage you to do that, and have fun with it. I am super envious of where you guys are at, and I am really just looking forward to playing the games tonight. So, thank you.